Hello, I've noticed that there are some people who don't know how to make pancakes. So apart from obviously using things like Aunt Jemima pancake mix and what have you, but I mean, Aunt Jemima is literally just like 2 steps away from making them from scratch. So what you need is flour, milk, egg, salt, and some baking powder if you like them fluffy. If you like them like a crepe, then you don't need the baking powder because you don't want it to rise that much anyway. It also helps to have a really nice shallow pancake frying pan, but you don't necessarily need to do those so long as you can actually. I would use a big frying pan and make small pancakes because then it's easy to access the corners. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with about a cupful of flour. So where's a cup? There's a cup. Actually, I'm going to use a glass. I'm going to go mad. There you go, 1 glass. I've actually got some flour here, which is the leftovers. That's a new one there, but I'm going to use this old one first. There we go. Pop that in there. See how we do it. It's about a cupful. Yeah. I mean, by the time I put it in there, oh fuck it, just put the rest of it in. There we go. So there's that. And then probably an equal measure of milk. But we'll come to that in a minute because what you need to do first is, first of all, you add the dry ingredients. So a bit of salt. Can't tell you how much, but that's to taste. Some baking powder. I would say about a spoonful. Teaspoon. So that's the dry ingredients. So now we've got all the dry ingredients out of the way, we just get a whisk and just whisk it up a little bit just to mix it in. There we go. And then add the milk. You're going to add a cup of milk. Actually just a bit less than a cup there. Put that in. I think it might need a cup, but we'll see how we go. So we're just mixing it. It's becoming, it like turns to pancake batter almost instantly. So at the moment it's slightly thicker than I'd like. So I'm going to add a little bit more milk. But before I do, I'm going to add this egg. Because obviously that's a liquid as well. So that's going to add to thinning it down. There we go. Still quite thick. If you like your pancakes really fluffy, then keep the mix quite thick. If you want them slightly thinner, then just add a little bit more milk. And you can add another egg if you really want to. If you like them very eggy, I don't. But that is about the right consistency for me. That's like a double cream. Now the trick to this, and the really good trick, is now you do absolutely nothing for about 20 minutes, half an hour. Because what will happen is the baking powder will rise and add the air into the mix. So if you like them fluffy, go for it right now and just leave that to thicken up a bit. Also, when you've left it, if it's still too thick for you, you can then add a little bit more milk. Because by then the baking powder will have proved and will have done its job. You don't just have to use self-raising flour. You can use, I've got rice flour in there, I've got buckwheat. Rice flour is good to add. You shouldn't use it as a whole pancake, but if you like your pancakes crispy, then add just about a tablespoon of rice flour to it, and that makes it go really crispy. If you don't like gluten, you can use buckwheat flour. There's so many different flours around these days. You're not set with, good old, the home pride flour graders. You can use any flour you like. And actually, it's quite interesting to make pancakes using other flours, just as a experiment to see how it goes. I'll be back pouring pancake mix into the frying pan, and I'll show you how to prove the frying pan before you start to use it. And we're back, and we've let the batter stand for a bit and put it into a nice little bowl here. So it's looking quite sort of thick, like sort of pretty much thick double cream. And what we're going to do now is make some pancakes. So put a little dash of oil into the cold pan, and then we get a bit of Scott towel, or whatever you call it, kitchen paper. I'm old enough to call it Scott towel. Fold it up a bit, and then make a sort of a wad out of it, and then use the paper to evenly coat. And then we can come back and do this again and again as we need to. Obviously, as it gets hotter, you have to be a bit more careful. But there you go, there's a nicely oiled pan. We'll put some heat under it. I'll start it off on a high heat and then reduce it to a medium heat. And what we'll do is the first pancake, we'll make a very small one. And the reason for doing that is because we need to have the pan up to the right temperature. So the best way to test that it's at the right temperature is to make a small pancake. And then when that starts to caramelize properly, you can tell that you're at the right temperature, that your pan is evenly hot all over, and you can start to cook the pancakes that you actually want. I'm not saying you don't eat the first one, I'm just saying it's a test. So let's just turn that down a tiny bit, there we go, to about half. And we'll pop a spoonful, actually I'm not sure. I think this is actually almost a bit thick. I mean, it is really quite, I mean, it has significantly, seriously thickened up. I might just add, well no, I'll tell you what, let's start off with it thick. So there we go, one small dollop of pancake batter. And sorry about the big hand. I'll try and avoid that for the next one. So we're just going to leave that now. If I zoom in a bit, you'll see that it starts to bubble up, and there we go. When it does start to bubble, that's when it's cooking, and when it's cooking, we know that the pan is at the right temperature. So what else can I tell you about pancakes? I've told you can make it out of lots of different flours. I've told you to ideally use a shallow frying pan. Oh, there you go. There's the first pops coming up. There's the first little air bubbles coming up. Yes. So crepe. So if you this is for sort of your standard American style, big, fluffy waffle style. I mean, you can use, actually this is batter that you can use for a waffle if you have a waffle iron. The other thing you can do if you want it to be a bit more American, like most American things, is add a drop of caster sugar in there, which is fine. It just makes it slightly sweeter. I quite like them fairly neutral, so that they take on the sweetness of the Nutella or the sourness of the lemon or the you know, that sort of intense sugariness of the maple syrup, or just of the chocolate ice cream. Whatever you want to put on. But then if you after this one, I'll do a thin one, and that one is really, I think they're really nice with a little dollop of heated ratatouille and maybe some shredded chicken. I mean, that's a fairly standard. And also, if you use the buckwheat flour, then that's a proper French galette. So there we go. Look, we've got lots of nice big fluffy white, big fluffy air bubbles in there, and we've got a nice caramelized base. So this is all going to be rather yummy, I think. And what you can also see, maybe you can't, let me just pull that back a tiny bit, is that where the pancake was, it's actually soaked up a little bit of that oil. So the constantly oiling the pan is a good thing to do. Because A, it makes it easier to flip, which we'll get around to doing, and B, it means that you can, it just cooks the pancake better, makes it caramelize better, and makes it tastier. So, I think that's probably about done. Let's just have a look. Ooh. There we go. How about that? That looks to me like a pretty good pancake. I'm going to pop that onto a plate. There we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make a bigger, thinner one. And these are pretty easy to do. Again, I'm just going to oil up the pan. This time, because the oil is now hot, so you have to be a little bit more careful. I'm going to zoom out again. There we go. That's the pancake on the plate. And we know that the pan is now at the right temperature. So because I'm going to make the next one thinner, what I'm going to do is just add a tiny bit of milk. Maybe I was going to say a thimbleful, but certainly just a dash of milk. Maybe as much as you would put in a strong cup of tea. Just to make it a little bit thinner. Just a little bit. I don't want it to be as thick as it was, but I don't want it to be super thin. So there we go. Oop. A couple of splashes there, but that is a lot better. And the reason for doing that is, as you'll see in a second, it'll flow around the pan much easier. So here we go. Still quite thick, but if I do that with it, it'll roll around the pan. So from that we get a thinner pancake. Now obviously if you use something a bit bigger than a soup spoon, you'll get a much bigger pancake. But for the purposes of today, I'm just using I quite like. Do you know? I like the idea of a dessert spoonful, a soup spoonful of thing. You can see, by the way, here that this is now significantly airier because it's not having to fight its way through everything that we had before. So we've got a lot more bubbles. It's caramelizing very nicely. You can see from there's a little bit there that I missed. That's caramelizing nicely. And I reckon when the corners turn up like this, that's when it's ready to turn. So you've got a nice turned up corner, over it goes, and you've got a perfect pancake. They smell, I tell you what, they smell really good as well. So the other thing you can do with pancakes, by the way, is if you feel like it, you can actually make a lot like blinis. Again, it's just another sort of pancake. So you can make a lot of small ones. The way I do it is you start at the handle, and you sort of drop a blob by the handle, and then you just go round the clock. And then by the time you get back to the handle one, that's pretty much cooked. So then you turn that one over, and then just go around the clock, turn them over, and then by the time you get back to the 12 o'clock again, they're now ready. So you can just take them off. Can you see that's curling up at the edges? So that means that's ready. Here we go. Let's have a look. Perfect. There we go. That's a yummy pancake. So what we're going to do is just going to do one or two more on camera just to show you the different thicknesses. So now that this batter is thinner, we can still do the lump, but you'll find that it spreads out a bit more. Just a little bit. So before a spoonful was that big, and now it's that big. Does look good though, doesn't it? So I'm just going to help myself to this one actually. That's lovely. And actually what it does is it's got a nice elastic. The gluten in the flour means that if you make it with normal white self-raising flour, excuse me a second, the gluten keeps it stretchy. So with the thick ones you get that nice stretch, and even with the thin ones you get a sort of a nice sort of stretchiness, breadness. I guess it's not really bread, but it is very nice. You can see the bubbles coming up on that one now too. Can you see it took about the difference between the thick little one and the thin big one, it's about halfway now. So we're getting bubbles up at about the right time. Sorry, I'm eating the thin one now with a bit of lemon juice and some sugar, which frankly I don't think can be beaten. I think that lemon juice and sugar is the best, the definitive topping for a pancake. That is looking very good. You just see those bubbles like opening and close as they pop. They refill with the batter, and then they pop again and refill with the batter. That I think is about ready. Oh, look at that. That is a perfect pancake. You can see that it's cooked more in the middle where the first dollop went on, and then it's sort of gradually splayed out. But this is pancake making at its finest. With this one, I will show you how to flip a pancake. Just give it another minute or two. In fact, not even a minute or two, probably just a minute. And then the technology required and the technique required to flip a pancake. So first of all, make sure it's loose, which this one currently isn't. So I forgot to re-oil the pan between the last one and this one. Anyway, so we've got it's now moving about nicely. Now, what I want to do is to make that pancake at the far edge from the handle. So there, so I can actually bounce it up and down and easily toss it. So the trick is the position of the pancake, and also the size. I mean, if it's a huge one, it's a lot more difficult to flip. But that's how to make pancakes. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this and other Bruce's Kitchen videos. Cheerio now.